Hi, my name is Tammy,
And I'm Jen.
and they call us Woo. Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to talk about, I don't remember if we mentioned this in our own conversation or in the podcast, but regardless, we are going to talk about the Mandela effect. Mandela, excuse me. Mandela
Yes.
effect. It's not a
Well,
mandala.
mandalas are good too.
Mandela effect and timelines. This is going to be potentially a two-parter. We'll see how chatty we get, but I feel like this could maybe be like a 10-parter. There's a lot to talk about. But I'm going to let Jen kick it off a little bit because while I am familiar with all of the elements, I am not super familiar with the beliefs in the spiritual community about the Mandela effect being evidence of this timeline overlap.
Mhm.
So, do you want to take it away, Jen?
Yes, and I'm going to preface this with this came up because it is Christmas season. And I told Tammy this last week when we weren't recording, but there are songs for the Christmas season that I swear have different words to them. And then somebody told me that I was wrong and that the words that I have always sung to these songs are really different. And I started thinking about it and I started asking everybody, how do you sing this song? And everybody sings it the same way I do. And I started thinking about the Mandela effect. Mandela effect. Now you got me doing that.
Sorry. I have to think hard every time I say it now.
Yes, I know. I'm gonna say it wrong every time, everybody. Sorry. But so I want everybody who's here to think about the song I'll Be Home for Christmas because in that song, there are two different words that people use for the same exact part. So the lyrics are I'll be home for Christmas. You can blank on me. And some people sing count and some people sing plan.
Mm.
And I swear it is count. Like that is
That's
what I've
what sung
sung
out
since
in
I
my
was,
head.
yes. And I don't know if there's more than one song, if there's people who sing it differently, but this is one of those times where there is a collective memory of this song being sung a certain way with a certain word. And there's a whole nother group of people who have a different collective memory of what this song is. And that's exactly what the Mandela effect is there is something that happened or didn't happen in some cases and everybody believes that it either happened a certain way or it didn't happen or it did happen. And that's actually how it came up is there are a lot of people who believed that Nelson Mandela died in prison in the
Mm-hmm.
1980s.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Not true,
he
by the way.
not true at all. He did lots of things after that
Yes.
and he didn't pass away until 2013.
Mm-hmm.
And but even me, I remember like knowing as a kid that he passed away. Like that was just something that I was like, oh, no, he passed away in prison. And so then in 2013, when they announced that he passed away, I was like, wait, what? And so it's just a collective memory. A lot of people believe that that's what happened. So in the spiritual community, there's a lot of different theories around this. And one of those theories that we're going to talk about is that it is a different timeline. Or some people will even say that it's like a different dimension. Um, so I don't know how much you know about universes and dimensions and timelines.
We were just talking, my acupuncturist friend and I were just talking today about an experience she had. She described it as her multiverse, which
Mhm.
made sense too, where she was experiencing things from different like iterations of herself at the same time. And as we were
Yep.
talking about it, I think of it as like a choose your own adventure book, right? Do you remember those? I used to love
Yes.
those books where
Yes.
if you like made one decision, it was like go to page 36, but you could go back and like go and have whole different like experiences in this book based on the decisions you made. So that's how I think about it in my head. Yeah.
That is exactly how it is. So my understanding of this, and this is the way that I've been taught, and this is what spirits always told me, that the universe is like this big, we'll just say it's like this big circle. And within this circle, you have all these other smaller circles. The smaller circles are actually your dimensions. So the dimensions are within the universe. And then within the dimensions, so inside those small circles, are your timelines. So it's a way to break things up. If we go to the multiverse is actually multiple of those larger circles that are all over the place. And
Mm.
that's where parallel universes come in, but that's a whole nother thing.
Did you
But
know that oh gosh, how am I forgetting his name? The famous physicist Neil deGrasse Tyson, I think was just talking not that long ago, or maybe I'm totally like messing this up, but someone was talking about how they are like having some type of proof that our universe is flat, but in the sense that like flat meaning like you could see multiple dimensions and multiple timelines happening at the same time.
so it's like old school slides where they go
Kind of, where you could literally like see multiple things happening at once, where it's not like not flat in the sense of like linear and it's all just one way, but flat in the sense of like you could see, if you were looking the right way, you could see all of these things happening at the same time. I'm like,
that's super
what?
awesome.
Trippy. I could be
Yeah.
wrong. It might not have been him. So please, if you look that up and you're like, she's crazy, it might just be that I was watching something about him talking about us being stardust around the time that I found out that other thing.
Tammy was experiencing the Mandela effect, and something happened that she thinks happened. And
Pretty much.
no, but so like a lot of people believe that the Mandela effect is actually multiple different timelines happening. So there's multiple things that are happening within this dimension.
Mm-hmm.
And there are all of these little um it's like that choose your own adventure book that you're talking about. There's all these different adventures, all these different timelines that you could choose. And based on your one choice, you could flit from this timeline to this timeline and continue on that timeline and then come back to this timeline and go to another timeline. So I've had experiences with people where I've talked to people that have talked about as kids, they recognized that they jumped timelines and they saw a complete difference in the reality that they were experiencing.
Mm.
So you can see differences. Not everybody sees sees differences in this huge manner. That would be more of a like dimensional shift,
Mm-hmm.
where you would see more transitions, more changes.
Excuse me.
But when you're on a timeline and you decide that you don't like this experience anymore, or something traumatic happens, sometimes you can switch tracks and choose a different adventure so that you can self-correct or so that you can experience something different.
Hmm.
And so
Crazy.
there's some practitioners, some healing practitioners that I've worked with, and they help you try to combine your timelines because so many people they will um, use timeline shifts as a way to avoid their trauma or a way to
Mm.
avoid the things that are going on in their lives. And
Mm-hmm.
so sometimes what happens is they'll come up to a trauma point, they'll choose to go on a different timeline and avoid this discomfort.
Okay, so I feel like as you're describing it, I'm like, that sounds really familiar because I have moments in my childhood that were traumatic moments that in conversations with my mother later, she told me the way that I remembered them was entirely different than how it actually happened. Like she described it to me. And she's like, "Oh no, that's not actually what happened." And like the series of the way things went was different, but
Hmm.
also what actually happened in that whole experience was different. And I'm like, "Oh, that's interesting," cuz of course in my mind I'm like, your brain does weird things when you go through trauma, but that would be really fascinating if it was actually just like switching timelines, cuz that one really sucked at the moment.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and so that experience, because you can jump back to a timeline that you were on. Like you choose to experience from any number of different timelines. So
Mhm.
if you jump from this timeline to this timeline to this timeline to this timeline, you now have four timelines that your human experience, your human vessel, or not really your vessel, really your soul, is choosing between these four timelines. It could be six timelines, it could be eight timelines, whatever. If you have four timelines that you're working on, you now have versions of yourself that are attached to you that are all working in these timelines. That can create a lot of um, energy being spread out. It can create energy leakage within your system because your
Okay.
soul is now tied to all these different things. So I have practitioner friends, and I've done some of this work myself where you're actually working with people to bring those timelines back together and heal that so that you bring all of those energies back into this present moment.
Okay.
Um, it's super cool work when you see people actually fully bring those energies back in. But like in your situation, it could have been something where you were on this timeline, you chose to shift off into this next timeline, and then you popped back in. So,
Mhm.
like, your mom was continuing in this timeline, had this experience. When you came back in, she still had her experience. And now you're coming back in going, no, 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 that's not what happened. And she's going, yes, it is. So in those situations there are times where things don't match up, and
Mm.
that's where the Mandela effect comes in, um because there are different camps of people who are remembering things in different ways because they were on opposite timelines.
Mhm.
So like I went and I looked up all of these different examples in everyday life of Mandela effect things.
Mhm.
And I was really surprised at how many things actually came up. And there was things from Star Wars on this list. And I was
Oh
like, yay,
yeah.
we can bring
Yep.
Star Wars into this. Where
I
people,
I think I know that one.
which one do you think it
Is
is?
it the Vader one where he doesn't actually say the what is it?
Luke,
Luke, I
I'm
am
your
your father,
father.
even though
Yeah.
everyone says it. That never
Yes.
actually shows up in the movies.
Yes, but everybody remembers that that's what it is.
Mhm.
And when we were talking about this before, you brought up, well, sometimes it's because one person says it wrong and then it gets spread to everybody else and then everybody just believes it from there.
Mhm.
And so that's the other side of it is it could be that our human brain made a mistake and we just ran with it because we do that.
Mhm.
But it could also be that we're jumping a timeline where something was completely different. Um, and he really did say that. I'd like to think that he really did say that.
I mean, that's what we say when we're using our Vader voice in our house.
You do this
um,
often.
yeah. He likes it to switch it around with my daughter's name, but yeah. Anyway, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, so it sounds like I was thinking earlier as you were talking. It kind of sounds like when I did hypnosis. So it's like all of it still lives, like the way you're describing it, still living in your soul, like the way that she described it was like still living in your subconscious. And then when you connect with these like memories that you kind of forgot or whatever, you can like merge back together, because she walks you through visualizations where your that version of yourself and your grown-up version of yourself meet each other and, have a conversation and stuff like that. But so is there a way to like you said, your friend did it a different way. Is there different ways to kind of merge those things back together if you have had that experience? Or how would you know if you had had that experience?
Looking at your memory versus other people's memories, some people will start to have, like, for me, I recognize when I've hopped timelines sometimes because I'll start to have weird memories. Um, where it's like I was in one place and then I was kind of somewhere different and it was slightly off kilter. Like I could feel that it was different. It was off.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm a little bit more sensitive to the energies and recognize when something feels a little bit off kilter to me. Um, so for me, my experience was I recognized it. For other people, it's somebody else is bringing up to them, that's not how that happened. And they'll have like a whole period of time or several periods of time that other people are going, no, 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 no. That's not how this worked.
I feel like my husband and daughter constantly live in between many timelines then. Because they will tell you something with ferocity, like, I know this is true. And I'm like, I promise it's not, though. That's not the way the rest, maybe you experienced it that way, but the rest of the world did not. And I mean, we can make these two realities merge, but this is
Yeah.
just the truth that everyone else was seeing.
Are they on the same page with the things that they're talking about?
Not
Is it the
always.
two of them together? Okay.
No, not
I
always.
was like, are they hopping timelines together?
Well,
Like,
some of it is like they swear they've done something, like they can remember themselves doing a thing, and I'm like, it is almost 100% certainty that you didn't do that. And then I go look and I'm like, you did not complete the thing. And they're like, but I swear I did. And like, maybe they are just hopping timelines and in their mind they've completed that adventure and moved on to the next. But everyone else is like, but no, that's not what happened over here.
yeah. Well, so usually it would be if it's like a grouping of things. So it would
Yeah.
be like they have this major
It's all
thing.
jokes.
Yeah. Well, if they have like a major thing that happens, and at that point they're remembering something different, and then there's smaller things that come after that
Mm-hmm.
that are still all a little bit different,
Mm-hmm.
that would be a sign that there's definitely something going on with the timeline. Because if it's just one major event, it's, in my experience, it's rare that you hop for just one like little mini portion of time and then hop
In my
back.
head, I'm picturing, because the way that they operate, this seems like it could be realistic to me, that their little souls are like constantly two steps in front of their physical bodies. So all the things they think that they're doing in the real world, their little souls are like, "Yep, done," and their bodies are like, "I'm back here. I haven't completed the stuff yet." That's what I'm
Well, yeah.
picturing in my head. Although there has been a few times that they swore something happened that I was like, I promise that's not the way it happened, and it was both of them. But more often than not, it's just them. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
they just live in their own planes of existence, and
Yeah.
I don't remember if I said this on the podcast, but I remember telling me when she was really young that she, what'd she say? Oh, she's like, you know what, Mom? Dad and I are like balloons, and you're like the person holding our strings so we don't float away. And I'm like,
Hmm.
that's probably the most accurate description that I've ever thought of any of this.
So I'm just gonna say that when you say that, because I've heard you say that before, sometimes I think of Pennywise the clown. And because my brain goes to weird places, and I'm like, hopefully you're not creepy while you're holding those
I'm
balloon
not a huge
strings.
fan of clowns, so
Yes.
I wouldn't
So
be
you're not.
holding the balloons while I'm also wearing makeup and stuff like that. But no, they just, yeah, they like bob around in a whole different plane of existence most of the time. Wouldn't that be
Yeah.
funny though if that really was like how it worked for them, that their like planes of existence were just constantly folded like an accordion, and they were
I
just like
wonder.
walking through like all these timelines. That would be
I wonder if there's
crazy.
people like that. I bet
I
there's
don't
people
know.
who, because I mean, there are people who intentionally, that are intentional about like multidimensional travel and
Hmm.
shifting between dimensions. And I know that there's some people who recognize the timeline shifts
Hmm.
and recognize that they're in a different place. So
Do you
I
believe
wonder,
there's portals? Because that was the
heck yeah.
conversation with the acupuncturist today. And I don't want to share her whole story because it's not mine to share, but
Mhm.
basically, that she had this like whole year where she felt just completely discombobulated and like foggy brained, and things just didn't feel right. She didn't quite feel like herself. And when she worked with a person who works with these like multi-dimensional realms and stuff, they figured out this specific experience she had where she must have encountered a portal, and that she was experiencing her multiverse all at once. And I was like, well,
Mhm.
that sounds crazy. And she's like, it was crazy. And so this person
Yeah.
helped her kind of get back to this one. But
Yeah.
as she was explaining, I'm like, wow, that's really interesting to think about.
Have you ever had an experience where you've popped in and out of dimension?
If I did, I don't know that I'd be able to recognize that. Maybe if you explain like what what it
You'd
feels
probably
like.
recognize it. Well, I don't know if everybody's experience is like mine. So I will tell you this one that I don't usually share out loud with people. Very few people know this, but I'm going to share it because whatever. So there was a point in time where I was driving down the highway where I used to live, and I was just tooling along, getting ready to go to work. And I got to a very specific point on the highway. There was a cemetery on the one side of me. Um, it was a divided highway. So there's two lanes here, then there's like grass in the middle, and then two lanes on the other side. And I passed the cemetery and I was like, oh, it looks so pretty today, blah, blah, blah. And just kept driving. And all of a sudden, in front of my car, this is going to sound so stinking bizarre, but whatever. There's this gigantic being like standing in the middle of the freeway, like right in front of my car, probably 40 feet tall, like
What?
huge. And I, I don't do drugs. I was not high. I had plenty of sleep that day. I rarely drink. I was not drinking. And I kind of panicked a little bit. I recognized, okay, this has to be a multidimensional being, or this is some type of spirit. Like, if I drive through it, I'm probably going to drive straight through it. It's probably fine. But I'm going 70 miles an hour down the freeway, and all of a sudden, this thing is like a car length in front of me.
Wow.
And I was like, hit the brake, hit the gas. What do I do? Do I just keep driving? And it was like I could see this being's eyes, and we locked eyes, and it was like I could see him go, like, what the heck is this? So it was one of those things where I think we were in this weird multidimensional portal where this portal opened. He was in this weird place and I was in this weird place at the same time, and it was like both of us recognized, and like right before my car hit this being, it was gone.
What?
But it was this really bizarre moment of, oh crap, what do I do? And then I'm like, I'll go right through him. I'm sure I'll go right through him. And then I'm like, but he popped in like very, very like real right in front of me. And I'm
Wow.
like, and but he was gone just as quickly as he got there.
Wow.
And so after that, I was like, okay, that was a cool multi-dimensional shift experience. And I've talked to a couple people about that since that have also had experiences with transferring between different dimensions.
Hmm.
And I've had several people talk about when they're in cars traveling, having things happen. Oh, this brings up, I have another story about that too. Where Like one lady that I was talking to, she was driving down just like a side road going 35, 40 miles an hour. And all of a sudden, a truck like turned in front of her or something happened. And somehow her car went straight through the truck. Like nothing happened. Everybody was fine. The truck like stopped on the other part of the intersection and was just like her and the guy both kind of stopped and looked at each other like what just happened.
Whoa.
But they didn't hit each other like they should have hit each other, but they didn't. Like they just magically went through each other without anything happening.
That's crazy.
And they recognized it in the moment and they went their separate ways.
Yeah, how do you explain that to somebody who doesn't believe these things are real?
Right?
I
And it's
just
like
drove
those
through a truck
movies.
and he drove through me.
Yeah. And it's like those movies where you see all of a sudden there's like somebody's angel, guardian angel or whatever, comes and grabs them quick and moves them out of the way of a vehicle that's about to hit them. It's
Mm-hmm.
like things like that where, okay, what is that? Is it a multidimensional portal? Is it you're shifting timelines rapidly so that you don't experience that event? Is it a
I don't know.
coincidence?
I don't
Is it
know.
your angels?
That's interesting. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, what you experienced and what you said the other person experienced with the car, that doesn't seem like it could be explained with any amount of coincidence. And you already
No.
took the other options off the table, like like drugs.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And you weren't
Um,
sleeping while you were driving. You weren't
nope.
hallucinating.
Nope.
That one with the two cars is even weirder because, like, that's two people that experienced that. They weren't,
Hmm.
neither one of them was hallucinating.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I asked the
Interesting.
lady, I was like, did you get out of the car and go talk to him and like ask him? And she's like, no, I just kept driving. Like, what am I going to say to this person who's probably not on the woo spectrum? Like, and you can safely assume that about a good majority of people, especially where I live now. And she was just like, I'm not gonna just walk up to some person and be like, oh my gosh, did we just go through a multidimensional portal? She's like, I'm not gonna do that. Okay.
Now I'll have to think. Like, nothing comes to mind, but I I don't know, maybe something happened that I didn't recognize, but nothing comes to mind at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wonder if my husband has had any experiences like that cuz he's had all kinds of weird experiences in his life. I should ask him.
I'd be very curious about his
Mhm.
experiences.
Or maybe he'll have the same conclusion I did, which is like I always live in different dimensions.
Yeah.
That's my
Yeah.
daily life.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I had another experience again driving. I had been having dreams for probably a year. I'd been having dreams that I was driving down this specific section of road and there's like a giant gully that goes down. You cross over a bridge and then there's like a huge, I say gully. What is the other word for that? It's like it's like you there's no it's not a cliff, but it's like you just go down off the road and it's like
Mm,
really deep down into the woods
a
and
ditch?
a ditch, but it's like way deeper than a ditch.
Okay.
But so I had these dreams, nightmares really, that I was driving down this section of road and I got a notification on my phone and my phone was attached to my dashboard. And because I always use my GPS on my phone, and so it's usually attached to the thing. And in this nightmare, I glanced to look at my phone because it made a noise. And I looked right back, and the person in front of me slammed on the brakes. And I swerved and ended up going down into the ditch, and I died in my dream. Like I had this dream for about a year.
Mm,
And so I was very, very aware when I was driving on this road, especially when I was driving my car. Because I would drive other cars when I was going on that road. But if I was driving my car and I was in that lane, I would usually drive in another lane because I was like, I don't want this to happen. And there was one morning I was getting ready to go to work and I was listening to um some type of um prayer channeling or something on my phone. And I'm driving, and for whatever reason I didn't switch into the other lane. So I get across the bridge and my phone notification, and I don't usually have my notifications on either. So it startled me enough that I looked at my phone and I looked right back up, and the person in front of me slammed on her brakes. And in that moment, I recognized that this was exactly the car from my dream. This was exactly the situation. I was in the
Oh,
exact same spot. And I was like, oh crap, I have a choice to exit here. Like, and everything in me was like, okay, we have multiple different dimensions where different things can happen. Like, this is all happening as this is. And I was like, okay, what's going to happen here is we're going to step into a different space and we're going to slow down time and work on like what dimension are we going to be in? Like everything's going to be okay. And I literally swerved to avoid hitting her. I missed her car by like less than an inch. I can see her face in the mirrors as I'm like just narrowly missing her. And she is mortified. I have no idea why she slammed on her brakes.
what?
There's no car in front of her, no clue. And I swerved and I recognized that I was so close to the edge of the thing. I was like, I'm going down there for sure. Time completely slowed down. My car spun two full spins on the shoulder of this road. I'm facing the opposite direction, and my car is half an inch away from the edge going down into the gully.
What?
And my car came to a screeching stop. This person pulls off, stops, and I'm just sitting in my car going, oh, okay. So I just chose the dimension where I get to live. I just chose a different option. Like, I'm not going to
Wow.
die this time. And so I'm like super, super calm. And this lady, she gets out of her car and she comes running towards my car and she's like bawling and like freaking out. And I'm going, oh gosh, did I hit her car? I hope I didn't hit her car. I hope there's no damage. I hope she's okay. And I'm still like super calm. And I get out of the car and I go, and she's like, are you okay? Are you okay? And I said, yeah, I'm fine. I just, like, I was driving and I glanced down because my phone made a noise and I glanced right back up and you hit your brakes and we're fine. We're good. Are you okay? And she's like, yeah, I'm fine. And she's like, but, and she was complete tailspin. And I'm like, okay, have a and I just turned and got in my car and like turned back around and kept going because it was just so like, okay, I chose something different. I chose to
Wow.
be in a different dimensional aspect of where I was. And it was a very conscious choice in that moment while I was driving. It was super bizarre because it's like
Yeah.
in those movies when you see like everything's going in super slow motion and you can see like the bullet like moving towards somebody or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. That's exactly how it was. It was like I could see how close I was to hitting her car. I could see her face in the mirror. I could see like where my car was, every single turn of my car. Every aspect of it was in very slow motion and very like conscious decision. Okay, we're not going to go down there. Okay, we're not going to hit that car. Okay, we're just going to. It was the most bizarre
Hmm.
experience that I've had, but it was very clear from the guidance I was receiving when it happened. Like, you have the choice to stay in this dimension and experience what you have been living out in these dreams, or you can choose to go into another experience.
Weird. I mean,
Yeah.
I can't say that I've had any. time where I consciously chose those things, but I have had moments where everything slowed down and a lot of things happened in a very brief amount of time, but I could
Mm-hmm.
identify things like, yeah, like everything was. I made choices rapidly in a very short amount of time that
Mm-hmm.
I shouldn't remember, I guess you could say.
Yep.
Mm.
Yeah. So you probably have had experiences that you did not realize what you
Yeah,
were
I
actually
did. As you were
experiencing.
explaining that, I did actually have a bad car accident several years back where it was the most bizarre thing. It was just like a light sprinkle outside, and it was turned into just a sudden like downpour. Could barely see anything, and I was trying to get out of the left lane into the right lane between these two semis, and my car ended up. I don't know if it was just the right combination of the water coming off the semi wheels or whatever, but my car hydroplaned off the road, and I um, managed to get in between the two semis and not get hit by either of the semis. I hit a sign which spun my car sideways into a tree, but and like completely crushed my car in. But it crushed my car in right behind me, and I got out of the car with just like I had a few little scratches on my head and stuff. And I mean, I got care, like chiropractic care and stuff like that. But reasonably speaking, there's a lot of things that could have happened in that amount of time that would have led to a very different result.
Mm-hmm.
And I got up and walked away from that. Like every window in my car was smashed out. The whole side of my car was smashed in. I I remember my husband, he panicked when I called him and told him what had happened. And I made the mistake of sending him pictures. At the time, he
Oh
still
no.
used social media, and he posted something on social media with my car and didn't
Oh.
put on there that I was alive and I was okay. So all of a sudden I'm getting all these messages, and I'm sitting out there like my family and friends like, "Are you alive? What's happening?" And I'm like,
Oh.
"What is going on? Why do all these people know this?" But anyway, long story short, there was a lot of things that happened in that amount of time, even that I could remember like what happened as I was going off the road, and each thing that happened in that time, that very brief amount of time, because realistically it was like 30 seconds, but it
Yeah.
didn't feel like 30 seconds. It felt much longer than that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
now that I think about it, I bet a lot of people have had those kind of like, oh, I guess it wasn't my time
Mm-hmm.
experiences, which does bring up a thought about deja vu. But I think this is a perfect opportunity to give everybody a little teaser for this
Mm-hmm.
next one, because I do still want to keep talking about this, but I'd
Yeah.
like to talk a little bit more about this idea of deja vu and how that might like blend into this Mandela
Yeah.
effect. I said it
Yeah.
right. And
Yeah.
keep figuring out this multidimensional stuff.
Yes. Yes. I kind of went off on a tangent about the dimensions.
It's interesting though.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right,
Well, and
well, everybody come back next week.
yes.
And
Yes.
you will hear more. We'll look the same if you're looking at us on YouTube, and we'll sound the same. But
Yes.
we're going to continue this conversation next week.
Yes. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody, for listening. If you liked what you heard today, please subscribe and check the show description for the links to the show. We would love to hear your thoughts below on this episode, as well as anything that you'd like us to talk about on future episodes. Remember, everybody, you are unique just the way you are, and that is why they call us Woo.
Mm-hmm.